Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Can I be heard clearly?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. And today I believe that we are live streaming on YouTube.
Yes,
So
Prabhuji.
welcome all of our guests who are joining us today. We've been having these sessions at this time each week, perhaps for the last month or two, and broadcasting here from Sri Navadip Dham and discussing the now that should be better sound, isn't it? No, that's better sound.
Yes, Prabhuji, now is better.
That's better sound. Okay. And we're discussing the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as described in the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata compiled by Srila Vrindavan Thakur. So we'll carry on today with the discussion. Vande aham Shri Guru Shri Padakam Anam Shri Bhagan Vaishnavanischa Sri Rupam Savadajatam Sahaganatam Tang Shajivam Sadvaitam Savadudam Vijanasayitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Shahagana Alidashi Vishagamitamshcha Guru Chota Shikha Gurugon Tachorane Age Kaliya Bandhan Panchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripashindavel Chapoti Dhanam Pavaneva Vaishnava Namo Namaha Om Gyana Timananda Sagyana Jumashalakaya Chakumanadanya Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tenamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauda Vani Pracharine Shishashana Prashtata Deshtani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Ram Ram. We were discussing Vishwarup took sannyas as a result of his association with Sri Advaita Acharya. This relationship between Sri Advaita Acharya, Sri Vishwarup, Shachinandan and Sachimata actually, we can see has quite a thematic presence in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, beginning with those incidents where Nimai would be called each day, well, some days, anyway, one day, and he went to the Shobha, Advaita Shobha. Just on the topic of Advaita Shobha, we're currently hearing about Srila Haridas Thakur. We were requested by the GPC Strategic Planning Committee to discuss the disappearance of Srila Haridas Thakur. And so we've been hearing about Srila Haridas Thakur's glories. And I was also looking at Srila Haridas Thakur's coming to Navadip, coming to Mayapur. He's from East Bengal, Joshua district, Burdwan. Near we have our Rup Sanatan Shriti Tirtha, where Rupa Sanatan Goswami appeared in this world in East Bengal, Joshua. We have the project there, it's gone. So not far from that place is the birthplace of Srila Haridas Thakur. And how he came to Navadip Dham and to the banks of the Ganga at a place called Pulia. He came from East Bengal to Pulia. It's near Shantipur. And there many pastimes were performed. And they're described, they're referred to in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, his preaching, and in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, and he's being punished by the Nawab. Prabhupada comments, Prabhupada narrates the story of Haridas Thakur in Fulia living in a cave, and the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas were coming and hearing from him, and they smelt they could feel in the air the presence of a poisonous snake, and so they were very, they were concerned. So then Haridas Thakur said, I see you're perturbed by this, you're disturbed, and therefore I or the snake will leave this place tomorrow, and in this way you'll be peaceful. And the snake immediately slithered past them, a beautiful snake with ferocious looking, colorful snake. That's described in the second canon of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada's purports. He narrates that story.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sorry for disturbance. Prabhuji, just to check, is your video on, Prabhuji? We cannot see anything. We can hear you very properly, but not the video.
Oh. Well, my video is on.
Yes, Prabhuji. Now we can see, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Well, maybe I need to keep that. Well, 1 minute. Can you still see me?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can.
Yes, Jivamrit Prabhu, I think you are checking on YouTube, right?
Nah.
Because
No,
still you
Prabhuji.
don't spotlight Prabhuji's video, no? On YouTube, you will see a blank screen only. Because we are able to see Prabhuji's video.
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji.
We're okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's important. We don't want to go for the whole hour not knowing that. So I totally appreciate your interrupting me at that time, Prabhu. Thank you. We can pick up the thread. The snake slithered past them, ferocious looking, different beautiful colors. He was beaten by the Nawab. Also, his preaching is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is all at that period of time. And he preached extensively. Later, what we hear when Srila Haridas Thakur was departing, Mahaprabhu said that you've preached extensively. And then subsequently, Mahaprabhu ordered Srila Haridas Thakur and Nityananda Prabhu, Shunu Shunu Nityananda, Shunu Haridas, Shabatra Amara Gai Koro Prakash, Prati Gori Gori Gi Koro Ipika, Bhaja Krishna Bolo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shikha. He appointed Nityananda Prabhu and Srila Haridas Thakur as his first preachers. Shunu Shunu Nityananda, Shunu Haridas. Shabatra Amara Agai Koro Prakash. Shabatra, in every place, Amara Agai, my instructions, my teachings, Koro Prakash. You reveal them. You preach. Prati Gore Gore Gi, go to every home. Gore Gore, every door, door to door, go door to door. Prati Gore Gore Gi. Koro Ebika, you beg this, Koro Ebika, because the renunciates in the traditional Shanatanist culture, Sanskriti, Vedic culture, and the culture of traditional Bengal and the Gaudiya Vaishnava culture, even Gaudiya culture, the Gaudiya culture, that the renunciates, that they go door to door and beg. Here in Mayapur, I have a residence, and I have visits regularly of sannyasis who live in Gaudiya Math, in Navadip, in Mayapur, and they come in door to door, and they come and we give a donation, and they don't stay so long, and they come sannyasis particularly. They come in and may mention to me they have a requirement, and it's a great blessing. It's a great blessing upon a householder if a sannyasi can come and you get an opportunity to serve an exalted Vaishnava. Bhakata Sheba Paramashidhi Premalotika Mula Shuddha Bhakata Charanadeno Bhajana Anuku. Srila Bhajana Thakur, he sings that Bhakata Sheba Paramashidhi, the Bhakata Sheba, the highest, the Paramashidhi, the highest perfection is Bhakata Sheba, Paramashidhi. Prema Lotika Mul, it's the Prem Lota, Bhakti Lota, Prem Lota Mul, the root is Bhakata Sheba. And if you get an opportunity to do Bhakata Sheba for a person who's a dear Bhakata, Antaranga Bhakata, or Priya Bhakata, Bhakta, then that pleases Krishna so much. So the sannyasis, they out of kindness, they give the grihastas opportunity by coming door to door, and that's it. That's why they don't stay long, because once you've done some bhakti seva, then you've done that, and you've become so pleasing. Krishna's become so pleased with you that sannyasi has shown so much mercy on you, then he can leave and go and give an opportunity to someone else. So that's the way to see when a sannyasi or a mendicant comes to one's door. Not not like in modern society we maybe shoo them away. So they would beg, and so Mahaprabhu is telling Haridas and Srila Nityananda Prabhu that what you beg, you renunciates, you're going to beg, because renunciates like you beg, and what you renunciates will beg every gore, what you will beg will be Bhaja Krishna, Bala Krishna, Kora Krishna, Shikha, worship Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, follow Krishna's instructions. So they were the first preachers, Srila Haridas Thakur, Nityananda Prabhu. So even before, now we're discussing before. So Haridas Thakur, his whole life was preaching Krishna consciousness. In the session on the departure of Srila Haridas Thakur, we will spend more time hearing about his pastimes in Nilachal Puri Dham, where he actually, his pastime of disappearance, Tirobhava Titi, that was performed. So we'll describe that in detail. So, but in Navadip and even in Pulia, before coming to live here in Navadip, when Mahaprabhu was here, he was residing here, Haridas Thakur was residing here and performing Sankirtan every evening with the Lord, and he received that order. So then he was residing here in Mayapur. But prior to that, he was in Pulia, near Shantipur, and he was preaching extensively. And Advaita Acharya had he was initiated, actually. You'll see in Shantipur it mentions Advaita Acharya initiation of Haridas Thakur Stan. You'll see a mandir there in Shantipur, Advaita Thakur's body. You'll see a mandir there where it mentions this is the place where Srila Advaita Acharya initiated Srila Haridas Thakur, because he got the name Haridas. Where did he get the name? Mahaprabhu gave him the name Thakur. But Advaita Acharya, he initiated it, and he offered him the Shraddha Patra. Haridas Thakur was very, and that was even before Mahaprabhu had appeared and begun his pastime. So what a important role Srila Haridas Thakur was playing in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the association of Advaita Acharya. So Advaita Acharya, he was the leader of the Vaishnavas in Mayapur. And Vishwarup, he would go every day to the Advaita Shobha, the assembly of all the Vaishnavas, and he would discuss Bhagavad Gita, and they would be so enamored by Vishwarup's discussions. Advaita Acharya would stand up when Vishwarup would arrive. He would stop doing his puja, stand up and embrace Vishwarup and then the devotees, they'd see that, they'd all say Hari Hari, and then Vishwarup would be requested to speak on Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and he would so powerfully and so eloquently establish that Krishna Bhakti was the essence and conclusion of all the scripture. And whilst he was speaking in that way to Advaita Acharya Thakur, he would loudly roar in ecstasy. So there's the relationship between Advaita Acharya and Vishwarup described. And then Nimai would come into that scene, and he would pull on the dhoti of Vishwarup, and he would request him that mother's calling. Bojan Aishte, Dakni Janani. And he'd be pulling the dhoti and seeing that scene, Advaita Moni Moni Chintaya Advaita Mahashai. Prakrita Balok to a man, Prakrita Manush to a Balok Nai. Prakrita Manush Nai, this boy, he's Prakrita material energy now. He's not the material energy. Prakrita Manush to a Balok Nai. Moni Moni Chintaya Advaita Mahashai. He's thinking, this is not a material body. He's not when they would see him come and pull the dhoti. Later, when Mahaprabhu took sannyas, then Sachimata, she said, don't do like Vishwarup. This evening we'll come back to this very intense circumstance there, where Vishru's taking sannyas and Sachinandan is dealing with Sachimata, and more we'll discuss. Jagannath Mishra passes away, we'll discuss that today. So Vishru took sannyas. Jagannath Mishra, he took Nimai out of school because he thought that he'll also Shastra Gyanavan, he will also become knowledgeable in the Shastra and understand the temporary nature of material life, illusory gain, and then he'll renounce similarly like Vishwarup did. So he took him out of school, no studies, and then Nimai was very mischievous. He climbed up on the pots one day and he was arguing with Sachimata, and at that time he was also establishing the philosophy of the Vaishnava Achincha Bed Abed Tattva. In Vaishnava philosophy, he was discussing the monist philosophy, and the philosophy is superior to that, and he's just a young child. And the discussion is going on in that way. And then when Jagannath Mishra comes home, Sachimata tells him that Nimai is unhappy, feeling beta chitta, his pain in his heart because he's not able to study. So then, again, we heard the initiation. That was very beautiful. The initiation, the Jagya Shutra, Jagya Pavitra Anushthan, Jagya Pavitra. When Nimai received the sacred thread, that was beautiful. Shubha Mashe, Shubha Dine, Shubha Kone. It was in an auspicious month, on an auspicious day, at an auspicious moment. The sacred thread, which is an antisheta, was awarded to Sachinanda. And he looked so beautiful, looked like Lord Bhamandev. And then he went and he was begging. He was begging alms with the cotton on his shoulder, a cotton bag, and a danda. As a brahmachari, he was for his begging alms for the Guru. And the wives of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, Rudrani and Saraswati, they appeared in the form of Brahmanis, Vaishnavis in Navadip and in homes there. And in order to receive this Gaurachandra, who just had been shaven and had the sacred thread and was begging and putting alms in his shoulder bag, cotton shoulder bag, just to have that opportunity, the wives of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva appeared in Navadip Dham as Brahmanis and Vaishnavis. Now, we could perhaps expect that they had their whole life there, not that all of a sudden they just appear, or maybe they just appeared for that purpose at that time. And then Jagannath Mishra, he takes Nimai to the school of Gangadas Pandit, because Nimai Gore Sharva Shastra Bujya Shamahito Goshti Maje Prabhu Poite Hoiluchito. We were discussing this verse last week in the Srimad Bhagavatam class here in Mayapur, that he was at home, Gore, Shara Shastra Bhujya Shamihito. He completely understood all of the scriptures just at home. In previous sessions, we were hearing how Nimai very quickly learned the Bengali alphabet. He was writing the names, Govinda, Banamali, Murari. He was writing Bengali. I was discussing with one of my friends here who's Bengali and a Sanskrit teacher, and I was saying we should have a course where the Western devotees can learn Bengali by learning the names like Murari, Banamali, and Gopal, Govinda. Learn Bengali script and write. That's how the first words that Sachinandan was writing, and that'd be a beautiful course. And he learned so quickly, and everyone was enchanted to hear him pronouncing the sounds of the Bengali alphabet, ka, ka, ga, ga. Imagine saying little Sachinandan learning to speak Bengali, Gauranga, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adikonda Kota Jai Amrit Shravan Jai Shishu Rupe Kriya Kore Narayan. Shishu Rupe, in the form of a young child. Narayan, the Lord of Vaikuntha, Kriya Kore, he plays games and enjoys like a child. So then he went to Goshti Majay. He wanted to, he was at home, he already understood all the Shastra, but Goshti Majay means in the society of others. Goshti Majay, Prabhu Porite Hoiluchita. Porite means to study, Hoiluchito. In his heart, a desire appeared. And I found that fascinating that there's no description up to this point that he desired to study with others. It's not mentioned. He didn't, that desire is not being expressed. And now all of a sudden it appears, the desire appears, Hoilo Chitto. What was that? What happened in the heart? Hoilo Chittum, in the heart, it means in the heart, then the desire to Goshti Majay, Prabhu Borite, Goshti Majay Borite, to study in the association of others. He got a desire. And I thought that's fascinating, that desires that weren't there before, they appear in the heart of the Lord. In other words, desires appear in the heart of God. Isn't that fascinating? Even though he's Purnam, but still, desires are up, desires appear. Isn't that just like they do in our hearts? Because if we have the experience of a desire coming into our hearts, so how could we have that experience if it's not experienced by God? We have to have that. I mean, he experiences everything. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnamudachite Purnamadaya Purnamaya Eva Vishishite. The Upanishads explain that even if things are taken away, it doesn't change him. Even if everything's taken away, he remains Purnameva Avishishite. So it's not, how can he become more? There's no question of he's everything that there is, even the whole concept of taking away, he's that. So how could he desire appear? I mean, how could it be a surprise? But this is how he enjoys as a person. So here's an example. He was studying at home, but then all of a sudden, but it mentions that the Hoilu Chitto, it happened in his heart. He desired to study another. He wasn't mentioning before, I'm going to go and study with others, but now he desires that. And Jagadam Mishra knew that and decided to bring him to the school of Gangadas Pandit. Now, who's Gangadas Pandit? He is Navadipe Ache Ekjon Navadipe Ache Oddapak Shiromani. He's amongst the scholars of the Sanskrit grammar. He's the Shiromani. He's the Krish jewel. He's the gem of the scholars of Navadip. Shiromani, the jewel on the head. Shiromani. Navadip Ache Oddapak Shiromani. Gangadas Pandit Ache Sandipani. He's Sandipani Muni. Gangadas Pandit. So Mahaprabhu, he doesn't just study from anyone, like a convenient in the same neighborhood, they're just a local teacher. Even you hear when great personalities, they describe their lives, and it's like, he studied him under this person. And that person, perhaps only fame is that he was the teacher of that great person. And that's why he became well known. But in this case, generally people, in this case, it's Sandipani Muni, the Guru of Krishna. Sandipani Muni, the eternal teacher. Sandipani Muni from Avanti, where Krishna and Balaram went and studied 64 arts and the Shastra, Dharma Shastra, Dano Shastra, and everything Veda in 64 days. They studied all these things. They talked to the animals and birds, mentioned some things. They learned the language of the animals and the birds. So that Sandipani Muni, he appeared in Navadip Dham, and he is Vyakaran Shastrer Ekanta Tattavit. Vyakaran Shastrer Ekanta Tattavit. Shravananda Thakur is glorified, teacher of Sachinanda Gaudhari. He is Vyakaran Shastrer. Means for the grammar, Sanskrit grammar, the scriptures in relation to Sanskrit grammar, Vyakaran Shastra, Ekanta Tattva, extremely learned. Ekanta means the ultimate. You could go, the ultimate point you could reach. Tattavit, knower of the conclusions, knower of the truths of Sanskrit grammar, Shastras. That's how he's glorified. That's how Brahmins are glorified. As the knowledge. He is Vyakaran Shastriyat, Ekanta Tattavit, extremely learned in the conclusions of Sanskrit, scriptures in relation to Sanskrit grammar. But how beautiful it's Bengali. How beautiful a language is that? In English, you have to say, he's extremely accomplished in all of the scriptures concerning Sanskrit grammar. And in Bangla, Vyakaran Shastriyar Ekanta Tattavit. And he became the Sarva Shishya Shrestha, the topmost of all students. Topmost of all students. Sarva Shishya, and he had thousands and thousands of students, and no one could defeat him on. No one could stand in front of his arguments. They would ask him to discuss about Jyotish Shastra, and he would make arguments, and then he would ask the listeners to refute him. No one could refute him. Then he would refute those arguments, and then he would ask them to respond to his refutations, and then no one could speak, and then he would refute the refutations of the original arguments, and then establish the original argument again, and then all the students were simply standing there with their mouths gaping, unable to. He was such a pundit, and in this way, he's enjoying the Vidyalila more. This is coming to the point here of Vidyalila. Actually, we're going to, after this session, next session or two, we're going to be discussing more about Srila Haridas Thakur, because Ananta Chaturdasi is coming up, so we'll spend a couple of weeks and we'll explore in more detail Srila Haridas Thakur. And then after that, we won't actually get to the 13th chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila today. We won't actually get to there today. Because today we'll discuss the departure of Jagannath Mishra. Then, after a couple of weeks of discussing Haridas Thakur, we'll discuss chapter 13 and chapter 14 of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, where what we've been discussing in the last 6 weeks or so from Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata is summarized in a couple of chapters, sometimes a whole chapter of Adi Lila. Chaitanya Bhagavata, just like, for example, the pastime of the Lord taking the offerings of the Brahman 3 times. That's one verse in the chapter 13 of Adi Lila, so it's a summary here, so we'll go through that. And then after that, carry on with the Vidyalila, Madhava's pastimes in Mayapur, Navadip, and Vidyalila, which we're coming up to that point now. It's chapter 8 of Adi Lila. Chapter 9 is Srila Nityananda Prabhu's glories, and sometimes we hear that in the appropriate Nityananda Trayodasi period. So we'll go to chapter 10 at that point, the Vidyalila pastimes of the Lord, his marriage with Lucky Priya. We'll discuss that. And today we're discussing the departure of Jagannath Mishra. We're reading from chapter 8, and it's text number 71 of chapter 8. Panchakalpa Tadu Prabhu Sri Gaurasundor Janabir Banchapunno Kore Nirantor. Janabir Banchapunno Banchakalpa Taru. His Banchakalpa Taru means the Bancha, one's desires. Kalpa Taru, the desire fulfilling tree. Sri Gaurasundor. Janabir Bancha, the desires of Ma Ganga. Punna Kore Niranto, he fulfilled those desires constantly, endlessly. Niranto, isn't that a beautiful verse? Just discovering today. Janabir Bancha Punna Kore Nirantor. He's constantly fulfilling the desire of Ma Ganga. Bancha Kalpataru, Bancha Kalpataru, the Bancha Kalpataru Prabhu, the desire fulfilling Sri Gaurasundor. Janabir Bancha Punno Kore Nirantor. He's constantly fulfilling the desires of Mother Ganga. Is that not an amazing piece of poetry of Srila Thakur? finds the glories of Mahaprabhu, how his Banchikalpataru is a desire-fulfilling tree, and the desires of Madhanga he fulfills constantly. Kori, Bahud Bida, Krida Kori, Janabir Jole, Grihe, Ailen, Gauchandra, Kutu Hole. He would, after studying each day, he would Bahubida Krida, various kinds of, many kinds of Bahubida Krida, many kinds of play, Kori, he would do. Janabir Jole, in the waters of Madhanga. Grihe Island, Gauchandra, Kutuhale. After Bahut Bidha Krida, after many types of long, extensive playing, Bahut Bidha Krida, after doing that, he would very joyfully, Kutuhale, he would very joyfully return home. And what would he do when he would get home? He is Dvijamani, Gauchandra Dvijamani. He's the crash jewel of the Navadip Brahmins. And he would worship Lord Narayan, Sri Vishnu Puja, upon coming home. We hear that Gauchandra, in the guise of performing the Shraddha ceremony for his father, Jagannath Mishra, he goes to Gaya, and there Gaya Dham, and there he's initiated, and Vaishnav Purin comes back as a Prema Bhakta. He becomes a Vaishnava. Before that, he was Vaishnava, but he wasn't completely absorbed in chanting the holy name and doing Sankirtan with the devotees. That's what he did after getting initiated. He was a Vaishnava. He was worshipping Lord Vishnu at home. Tilak, everything, Vaishnava. Jota Bidhi Kore Prabhu Sri Krishna, Sri Vishnu Pujan. Jota Bidhi Kore Prabhu Sri Vishnu Pujan. Tulashi Jol Dia Koren Bhojan. Tulashi Jol Dia Koren Bhojan. This is his behavior. That Jota Bidhi Kore Prabhu Sri Vishnu Pujan, with all of the required regulations, he would worship Lord Vishnu upon arriving home after taking bath in the Ganga. After studying, go take bath in the Ganga. Then he would arrive home and worship Lord Vishnu, Jota Bidhi Kori, with all of the established rules and regulations. Sometimes I consider how because I happen to be living in Melbourne, Australia, when His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada visited that city, and I was present in that city, and my home was just a few kilometers from the temple where Prabhupada stayed and preached, and 4 or 5 times he visited and wrote his books and preached in Rath Yatra in Melbourne. So because I was present on the planet at that time and reasonably close to Prabhupada's Bapu, I think that had an effect on my heart, and it gave me some punya so that I could become attracted to the association of Vaishnavas and begin to serve Krishna. When the opportunity came my way, as the Vaishnavas, the devotees of ISKCON were preaching and outreaching, they came to my university college and I met them. And I started a relationship of service. So why did I do that when so many others didn't? How did I do that? Well, where did that come from? I can only think it's the fact that I was close when Prabhupada appeared, and when Prabhupada was present in that city and preached, then I happened to be there, and I was just affected by the atmosphere. Obviously, the demigods were in the skies to witness Prabhupada doing Rath Yatra in Melbourne. They didn't, after that, devotees stopped doing Rath Yatra. For various reasons. They do a small one, they do another one in the summer. For years, when I was a devotee there, we weren't doing Rath Yatra. We'd take the little deities out for a little Harinam. That was Rath Yatra, but not like the real Rath Yatra, which stops the whole city, the big, what we do in other cities. But they did do that when Prabhupada was planted. They're probably present. They'll probably never do that again. Well, not for many, many decades. That again, the movement becomes so strong. But we did Rath Yatra on the main streets of Melbourne. I mean, I didn't, but I was in Melbourne at the time. What year that was? 75. I was in school. So that had an effect that the whole city was purified. Just imagine all of those people who saw Lord Jagannath there. It's like the virus, right? That's how it happened. So it's like a super spreader, a mercy super spreader event. A mercy super spreader event. And so many people were affected, and so much spiritual potency, so much spiritual energy. And I got affected by that. And therefore, when I met the devotees 10 years later, 10 years later, after Prabhupada's departure, I met the devotees 10 years later. And then I immediately developed a relationship with serving the Vaishnava, did some seva. So then, how the help was just something like that. But then after we've been able to take so much association of Vaishnavas. So it's only by that mercy of Prabhupada coming to my city that I can be here now, and I'm speaking to you, and I can say that for the last year and a half in the lockdown, I've been able almost every day. Maybe we'll go today, let's see, unless it's raining or something. My Ganga's flooding at the moment, she's high. Almost every day I go and I take bath in Ganga and come back and I can do Vishnu Puja, because we have Shalagam Shila and for the Bhagavata. So isn't that, this is within the three worlds, how many people are able to do that on the banks of the Ganga, in the Dham? So how did I get that good fortune? Only by the mercy of Prabhupada, who came to my city and affected so many people, and I got affected by them. Prabhupada hadn't have come to the city, it may not have happened. Some realizations on that today. Tulasi Joldiya, Koren Bhojan, and then after worshipping the Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, and that's a Shalagram Shila, according to all the rules and regulations, he would Tulasi Joldiya, he would water Tulasi, and then Koren Bhojan, he would take prasada. A beautiful verse describing Mahaprabhu's behavior. Listen to this. Jota Vidi Kore Prabhu Shri Vishnu Pujan, Tulasir Joldiya Koren Bhojan. We worship Lord Vishnu according to all rules and regulations. And then he would offer water to Tulasi and he would take prasada. Now, he's the only son in the home, And this is how Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata are seeing him and relating toward him. Bhojan Korea, Matro Prabhu Shekhane. Immediately, where he would take prasadam, he wouldn't go anywhere. He would immediately go to his books. Yeah. Bhojan Korea, Matro, immediately after his meal. Bhojan Korea Matro. Prabhu Shekhane Pushtok Laya Gia. Shekhane Pushtok Laya. Where the books, where he kept his books. Immediately after taking his meal, he would go Pushtok Laya Gia, Boshen Nirjana. He would sit down in a quiet place. Bhojan Korea Matro Prabhu Shekhane Pushtok Laya Gia, Boshen Nirjana. In a secluded place, he would sit down and read his books, study, make notes on different aphorisms, and he would annotations. Dekhiya Anande Boshe Mishra Mahashai Ratri Dine Harishe Kichu Na Janai. He wouldn't think of anything else. He just floated in an ocean of happiness, saying Dekhiya Anande. Dekhiya, saying this, saying Nimai, come home, worship Lord Vishnu, and then go and study and be very diligent about it. I mean, for any Brahmin, a Vaishnava, to have a son that, in their maturity, we're going to hear certainly after this, he'll be married. He's the young man. And he's such a wonderful emblem of Brahminical culture and Vaishnavism. So seeing this, a Vaishnava, a Vaishnava Brahmin, pure Brahmin, he'd be so happy. And actually, this is his eternal Leela. This is the Lord. And so he's enjoying his Leela, enjoying being immersed in the Leela of the Lord and feeling great happiness as a father. You do a whole PhD study on the love of Jagannath Mishra to Sachinandan. There's so much. You could do a whole study on that. Dekhiya Anande Bashe Mishra Mahashai. Anande Bashe. In an ocean of happiness. Ratre Dine Haishe Kichuna Janai. All day and night. He didn't know anything else except the happiness of his relationship with him. Jagannath Mishra Pai Bahu Namaskar Ananta Brahmando Nath Putra Rupe Jar. Jagannath Mishra Pai to the lotus feet of Jagannath, the feet. The feet. And Jagannath Mishra Pai Bahut Namaskar, unlimited obeisances, countless obeisances. Bahut Namaskar. Ananta Brahmando Nath, because the Lord of unlimited universes, Putra Rupeja, is his in the form of a son. Putra Rupeja is his in the form of a son. Putra Rupeja. Ananta Brahmandanath Putra Rupeja. His is the master of the unlimited universes in the form of a son. Yes. So Jagannath said, "Bye, Bahu Namaskar." Isn't that a beautiful verse? Shey Moto Mr. Chandra Dekite Putrer Nirabhati Bashe Vipra Ananda Shagore. Yeah. He's Nirabhade Bashe Vipra Ananda Shagore, in an ocean of bliss, seeing his son. Kamadev Jinia Prabhu Sherubaban Prati Ange She Lavana Anupam. Prati Ange. That's described as his exquisite limbs exudes the incomparable charm. Cupid's beauty bows in defeat before the Lord's blossoming freshness. Kamadev Jinia Prabhu Sherubaban Prati Ange She Lavana Anupam. Each and every limb exudes incomparable charm. So Jagannath Mishra, he would pray that the witches and demons don't cast a spell on Nimai. He had this anxiety, imagining the worst. That's probably a whole discussion here, because he's so beautiful, because he's so, he's just thinking, oh, as long as they don't become envious, the pretas and the bhutas and the witches. And so he's praying to Lord Krishna to always give his son shelter. So Nimai overheard. Nimai would overhear Jagannath Mishra praying in this way. He would pray, Mishra Bole, Krishna Tumi, Rokshita Shava. You are Krishna Tumi, Rokshita Shava. You are the maintainer and protector of everybody. Putra Proti, Shubhadrishti, Koriba, Amar Putra, my son. Shubhadrishti Koriba, you glance your auspicious glance over my son. Glance mercifully over my son. Putra Prati, over my son. Shubhadrishti, your auspicious glance. Shubhadrishti. Koriba, it doesn't particularly say that you be merciful. He says you glance over him, and that automatically will be merciful. Shubhadrishti. The Lord's Shubhadrishti, the Lord's glance is always merciful. Any type of interaction we're going to have in the service of the Lord with the Lord's stories, it all will be auspicious for us. So he would say that he's praying to the Lord. He would say that Jai Tomar Charan Kamal Sriti Kore Kobo Bignana Aishe Tahan Mundire. Those who Jai Tomar Charan Kamal Sriti Kore, those who are always remembering the Lord's feet. Kobo Bignana Aishe. They don't get obstacles. They don't get impediments in their life. Amitor Dash Prabhu Jotek Amar Raki Bhar Apne Tumi Shakal Tomar. Ami tor dash Prabhu, Joteka, or whatever, I'm your servant. And Jotek Amar, Rocky Bay Apanatumi, it's all yours. Emoto Nirabadi Misra Jagannath. Ekchite Goro Mage Tuli Duihate one time, raising his hands, two hands. Tuli Duihat Ekchitta Varamagi, you please, he begged for the Lord's mercy. Emote Nirabadi Mishra Jagannath Nirabadi, constantly with raised hands he was begging. Ekchitta Goro Mage, he would beg this. Tuli Duihate, with his two arms raised. You please protect myself. Then one time he saw a dream. He had a dream. Finally getting to Jagannath, which is dream, which will here. This is dream. Doive ekdin shopna dekhi mistrabar. Harishe bishad boro hoilo antar, in his heart, antar within, as a result of ekdin shopna dekhi, he saw a dream one day. Harishe bishad, he was both elated with joy and depressed seeing this dream. Shopna dekhi shtava bori dandavad kori he Govinda nimai rahuk mor ghare. Shopna dekhi, seeing that dream, shtava bori, making offering prayers, shtava bori dandavad kori, falling down on the ground. Hey Govinda nimai rahuk mor ghare, oh Govinda, you please keep Nimai at home. This is what he did seeing that dream. Fell down on the ground, offering obeisances, calling out, hey Govinda, Nimai, Rahuk, Morgo, you keep Nimai at home. You keep Nimai in my home. So what was the dream? Now seeing him lying down on the ground like that, paying obeisances and praying out, hey Govinda, keep Nimai at home. Keep Nimai at home. This is all I'm begging. Sachi Jigashaye Borohoro Bishmito Shachi. Sachimata, seeing this, was extremely astonished. And Jigashaye, she inquired, Ei Shakal Bal Kene Mage Achimbite. Why you are in this way suddenly requesting such benedictions from the Lord? Mishabale, Aj Mui Dekilon Shopna, Nimoi Koryachin Jeno Shikar Mundana. I saw this dream today, Mr. Bali. Ajmui dekilun shopna. I saw a dream in which Nimai Kariache Jena Shikar Mundon. Nimai had shaved off his sika. Shaved off his sika. In other words, shaving his head. Shaving his head. We're moving now to Mahavushanna. What's that? Shunu. Why? Sri Chaitanya. Okay. Sannyas Leela, it's a long time. We'll get to that. But he's seeing this dream that he's shaving his head. Now, Shashi Thakur was commenting in the purport that we see the pictures of Sachinandan, of Gaudango. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu having taken sannyas, and he's clean shaven, he doesn't have a sika, he's clean shaven. So at Katwa, when that barber, we went there, took Martha and Ganga, we went there, we heard the Lila Mahaprabhu Shannash Lila, Katwa. The Brahman, that barber, he shaved Nimai's head completely. It was the Chul Mundir, we darshan, the hair samadhi. So Shashi Thakur comments that the sannyasis would shave their heads completely because of the influence of Maya of Buddhists who would have shaven heads. So at that time, 500 years ago, even the Vedic sannyasis would shave their heads completely because the people in general, they had the conception that sannyasis had completely bald head. So it's saw Nimai in this form, with a completely bald head. And along with him, Advaita Acharya Adi Joto Bhaktagon Nimai Bediye Shave Korin Kirtan, headed by Advaita Acharya. Jota Bhaktagon, all of the devotees, they encircled Nimai and caught in Kirtan, and they were doing Kirtan. Kokono Nimai, Vaishe Vishnu Kotai, and then sometimes I'd see Nimai sitting on the throne in a dream. They can be walking on the road doing Kirtan, or else they're in the temple. Maybe they're in it, but anyway, they're walking. He said, no, he saw him shaved up. So this is in the temple. He's shaved up, and he's surrounded by Advaita Acharya and the other devotees, and they're doing Kirtan. And sometimes he would sit on the altar. Charan Duliya Deye Shabai Matai. He would Kokono Nimai Vaishe Vishnu Katai Charan Duliya Deye Shabai Matai. He would sometimes sit on the altar of Lord Vishnu and put his feet on the heads of the devotees. We saw this in the dream. And who was amongst those devotees? Chatur Mukha, Pachambuka, Shahasrabadan, Shavai Gayen Jai Shri Chinandan. Whilst this was going on, the Kirtan, he's putting his feet on the heads of the devotees. Along in that assembly, Chaturamukh is Lord Brahma, Panchamukh is Lord Shiva, Sahasrabadan and the 1,000-headed Lord Anantadev, Shavai Gayen, and they're all singing Jai Shri Sachinandan. Jai Shri Sachinandan. Jai Shri Sachinandan. I mean, is this man Srila Vrindavan Thakur from another world? Listen to this. Chaturmukh, Panchamukh, Sahasrabadan, Shavai Gayen, Jai Shri Sachinandan. That's the Kirtan he's describing. And this is the dream of Jagannath Mishra. I mean, what a dream. It's so explicit, so clear, and so Ashajapurna, full of opulence and mercy and glory. Chaturmukh, Pachamukh, Sahasravadan, Shavai Gayen Jai Shri Sachinandan. Maha Anande Chaturdike Shavai Shtuti Kore. In great bliss, Chaturdike, all around, Shavai Shtuti Kore, they're all offering prayers. Dekiya Amar Bhaye Bhakya Nashpari, except me, who's seeing this, and I'm completely astonished and I can't even say a word. And all in four directions, they're all citing prayers, glorifying Nimai. Kotakon Deki, Koti Lok Lai. Then sometimes I saw, after that, or at that time, I saw Koti Lok Noi, taking millions, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Nimai, Bulen, Protinagar Nachai. He's wandering around Protinagai Nachai, dancing with millions and millions of people. You can add that as a footnote to the Udila Aduna, as Nitai Madhav is singing the Udila Aruna to the Gurukul voice. So when it says that he's wandering through Nadia, then it's in the morning, Mukunda Madhava Yadava Hari with great joy. He's singing on the names of the Lord. Premi Dala Dala Shonada Anga Jordane Nupoda Bhaje, and his ankle bells that are chiming Chun Chun Mukunda Madhava Yadava. This kirtan in Navadip, Nadia, Grame. This is with thousands and thousands of people. This is what Sri Jagannath Mishra is seeing in his dream. Loka Koti Loka Nimai Pache Dhai Brahmanda Spashya Shabai Hari Donigai. And then at the sound of the kirtan of these hundreds and thousands of people was reaching the edge of the material creation. This is what he saw in his dream. Chaturadike Shune Matronimai Rishtuti. In four directions, all I could hear was the glories of Nimai. Nila Chale Jai Sharaba Bhaktir Shohiti. He was going to Nilachal with all the devotees along with him. Nilachal Jai. This is his dream. Shopnadeki Chitta Pai Sharbatai. So seeing this, Chitta Pai Sharbatai, in my heart all the time, Birakta Hoy Pache Putra Pahirai. I'm thinking that this child of ours will Birakta Hoy, become renounced, Pache Putra Bahira, and leave home. So that's why he fell on the ground, paying dandavats, calling out, hey, Govinda, please keep me at home. So what's Sachimati going to say? Sachi bole shopna tumi dekila Goshai, you just saw a dream, Goshai. Chinta na koriha gore rahiba. Namai, this is no, don't worry. Nimai, he's staying at home. He's so absorbed in his studies. He's so happy. He's going to be a householder. Don't be in anxiety in this way. Emoto, Parama Uddar Dui John, Nana Kota Kore Putrer, Shopner Karon. In this way, Parama Uddar Dui John, these extremely exalted two persons. Nana Kota Kore, we're discussing in different ways. Putrer Sneher Karon. Putra Sneher Karon, because of their love and their affection for the son. Now discussing these topics. Henemote Kododin Take Mishrabar Anturdan Hoilo Nitta Shuddha Koleban. So then at that time, after a few days, Anturdan Hoilo Nitta Shuddha Koleba, he entered into the eternal Anturdan Hoilo. He entered the eternal Anturdan. He disappeared. Anturdan Hoilo. Nitya Shuddha Koleba. In his, that means in Nitya Shuddha Koleba, means in that body, his eternal body. His body is eternally pure. Jagannath Mishra, Sri Thakur comments that he's not a product of the material energy, or is he temporary? Not a product of the material energy, he's eternal. It's Nitya Shuddha Koleba, eternal form of Jagannath Mishra. We can go here. It's probably the only temple of Jagannath Mishra. Let's see, maybe in Dokin Dhaka there in Sylhet area, there's a temple of Jagannath Mishra. But here, in Navadvip, we have the deity of Jagannath Mishra is worshipped. Mr. Vijay Prabhu Kadiya Bishtar, the departure of Jagannath Mishra, the Prabhu Kadiya Bishtar, he cried unlimitedly. Dasarat Vijay Jehen Raghubar, in the same way that Lord Ramchandra died when Dasarath left his body. And in this way, after the departure of Jagannath Mishra, we see that Mother Sachi became so attached to Nimai because she had nothing else. That was her entire life, was serving Nimai. Dondek na deki jodi I go to Chandra. If in 24 minutes, if she didn't see Nimai, dondek na deki jodi, if she didn't see Nimai in 24 minutes, I go Chandra Murja Pai, I dui choke, high on, she would go blind and almost fall unconscious. Prabhu Maya Priti Kore Nirantar, Prabodhena Tar Boli Abasha Utar, he would speak to her, he would respond to her in such a way that she would feel pacified about the pain she was feeling from the departure of Vishnu. Maya Priti Kore Nirantar, constantly Mahaprabhu was showing kindness and solacing Mother Sachi as a result of the sannyas of Vishwarup and then the departure of Jagannath Mishra. Shunimata, Moniki Chuna Chinti Hatumi, listen, don't be in anxiety in the slightest. Shakal Tomar Ache Jodi Ache. I mean, I am here and therefore you have everything, there's nothing you will ever require. Henemote, in this way, Navadipe Bipra Shishu Rupe, in the form of a young Brahmin boy, Achen Vaikuntanad Shanabab Shuke, the Lord of the Vaikunta planets, relished the ecstasy of these pastimes in the form of vicharas. Any questions on today's topics of the departure of Jagannath Mishra? Any question on the topics today? Can I be heard, by the way? Someone comment? You're just, can I be heard?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay,
clearly.
so there's complete silence, that's fine. So we can conclude. And as I mentioned, next couple of weeks, we'll be discussing Srila Haridas Thakur. And then subsequent to that, we will discuss Chaitanya Charitamrita chapter 13. There's something there in the chats. Oh, okay. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.